Right. So B2B sales. So all you guys know that there was a post that went out by Neil, and Neil is with us now. He said that he would kindly offer to show you how it's actually done. Now, this is a big subject, and a lot of you guys are interested in it. I really wanted Neil to come on and show us. And it's such a privilege because I see him answering questions all the time in the chat. I've discussed with him things before, and so it's really nice to actually meet Neil in the flesh. So good to meet you, Neil. Brilliant.
David, it's been a pleasure to meet you. I've been a Zenler customer for 3 or 4 years. I absolutely love the platform. I pushed it to the greatest extent that I can in lots of different areas. And I know that Zenler's got so many features and it's an all-in-one platform, but I'm not afraid of adding other things into my student experience in order to give them the best possible chance of success. So yeah, I'd love to share with you my B2B journey and what I've managed to do.
That would be amazing. So do you want to take it away, Neil?
Yeah, sure. So I think we'll start with a definition, David. So just in case anybody's not familiar what we're talking about when we say B2B, there are 2 ways of selling courses, B2B and B2C. So business to business, I own a business and I sell my courses to other businesses. I also sell to consumers, B2C. That's when an individual is paying for the course out of their own pocket. And lots of course creators and coaches will do that. Maybe if they're selling a lifestyle course or a hobby course or trying to improve your art or handwriting or basket weaving or surfing. Those types of courses are generally business to consumer. My 10-year-old son went surfing for the first time this weekend. It's a proud moment in our house. And I sell quite a few of my enrollments to my audience are Microsoft professionals, and I'll get some who pay out of their own pocket and come and join my course. But increasingly, over the last couple of years, I've seen more and more businesses enrolling their employees in my course. And that's a different type of buyer. There's a couple of differences, and they generally don't want to sign up online. They're maybe somebody in HR or training, or it's a team leader who wants to sign up somebody in their team. And so online course platforms are great. We can take quick payment and enroll somebody automatically. But if you're trying to buy a course on behalf of somebody else, or you want to pay by invoice, you don't want to use a credit card, we need to adapt the way that we sell courses. I'm sure you've got lots of other examples, David, of people selling business to business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you know hit it straight on the nose there. There's these 2 areas. Some people don't do both. Some just specialize in B2B or B2C. Yep. I'm B2C, but I have had B2B customers wanting to buy seats, as it were, and yep. They didn't want the hassle of going in, setting up separate user accounts and all these sort of things. And I've actually sold whole packages, training series videos to companies for them to host them on their own platforms. So that's another way that you can think of it. But when Neil was showing the graphic, I thought it was a really good way of really clearly explaining how it was all done. So yeah, so you're going to show us how it's all done.
Yeah, so let's see if we can share my school. I'm going to share my screen.
There we go. Yeah, perfect.
The resolution there. Great. So this is my Zenler school. It's called Customery.academy. Like I said, it's been running for 3 or 4 years. My business is called Customery, and my flagship course is called Scrum for Microsoft Business Apps. But don't worry, you don't need to be a Microsoft nerd or geek like I am to understand B2B. But I sell Scrum, which is a project management framework to Microsoft professionals who are building business applications. And one of my customers has enrolled probably only over 40 of their consultants by now in my course. And my old way of doing it, right up until very recently, was just like David suggests, if you ever ask him, which is take the sale. You know, I actually used one of the pricing plans and just said this is for 5 students. Customer could buy that online. I didn't need to figure out if the buyer was going to be one of the students or not. Normally they're not. So then I would go behind the scenes, create a coupon code, generate that in Zenler, give that to the buyer and say, hey, pass this on to the 5 people in your company who you would like to enroll, and they would then be able to enroll for free. And that's worked really well for hundreds and hundreds of enrollments. But I wanted something more automated than that, especially because I live in Australia and a lot of my great customers are in the UK and Europe or in the US, and they don't want to wait for me to wake up and generate a coupon code. So I wanted to find a more automated way of doing it. So if I scroll, if I just click any of these buttons, and I had to refer back to one of your courses, David, to find out how to do is it called a jump link or an anchor link to help people find the pricing plan?
The jump link, the famous jump or anchor link.
That's right. Yeah. So that takes them down to the bottom of my course sales page, and then they would select one of these options. Now it's not quite as tidy as I would like. There's too many buttons here. 6 options is quite a lot. But I've got 2 different pricing plans, my learning plan and the certification plan. Certification plan's got a few extra bits in it. And those are just regular pricing plans inside Zenler. But then I offer 3 different currencies at the moment. US dollars, Aussie dollars, and pound sterling. And I wanted to make those options pretty clear. So I got 6 buttons. And if I click on one of these, it then takes you into a slightly different checkout experience. So I'm not using the new Zenler checkout experience. I'm using a ticketing service. Mine happens to be called Humanitics, but there are lots of different event ticketing services available. Eventbrite, TryBooking. I'm using Humanitics. I like Humanitics because they're an Australian company. They're just down the road from me in Sydney. It's about 1,000 kilometers away. And they donate all their profits that they make from booking fees and processing fees to educational programs for kids. So a great cause I can support. So I'm now on the Humanitics website. You can see it's set up here as Scrum-USD. So this is my US dollar site. Just gives a reminder about what it is they're buying. Very similar to the New Zenler checkout. And then they're going to register. What I like here is instead of my old enroll 1 student or enroll 5 students in a team plan, you can enroll as many people as you like. Well, I've set a limit for 10. But if you enroll more than 5, there's an automatic discount built in. So that's just a feature of this particular ticketing platform.
Neil, can you add more than 10 people in there? So you just added that in your options of your maximum of 10?
Yes, I've added a maximum of 10. I'd love if customers wanted to buy 100 or more enrollments in one go. I think I've had a few sales of 10. I've had a few inquiries for 20, but when it actually came to it, they wanted to enroll 10 at a time. So that was just the limit, but I put on there. I can change that. The reason I got this idea for a ticketing website, I went to a friend's event in Brisbane a couple of months ago, and he was selling tickets for his event. And whenever you registered, I got 2 tickets for myself and my wife. And it said, oh, give us the email address for the first attendee and the email address for the second attendee. And that was the light bulb. Wow, I could use that and collect all the email addresses of all the attendees, which are the students in my sale. And I'm just going to do 2. So I'm going to enter details. Now, the buyer has to pick an event with a date attached to it, which is a little bit false because my course is online. It's evergreen. You can start at any time, get lifetime access. So I had to explain all of that in the sales page and in a checkout page. I say pick a date, which is the date that you hope to finish the course. But it's just to help me cheer you on. There's no actual restriction on starting or finishing. And here, the buyer can then enter their buyer information. So I talked earlier about a finance person, training person, or a team lead, filling in their information as the buyer. And then they can register students who are going to take the course, who could be themselves. So they could tick this box to say, yes, I'm going to be one of the students. Or they can enter the details of all the other people in their team who are going to take the course as well.
Yeah, so that collects. So you're collecting the buyers who's going to pay for it all, and then you're entering the first name, last name, and email for the tickets that are going to go out to those people. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and so in the next step, I don't want to bore you with filling in all the data, but in the next step, they can choose to pay by invoice. And in that case, what it asks for is a purchase order number. If the buyer wants to provide a PO number to help with invoice processing, enter in the invoice address, confirm their company name, and that will generate an invoice. And what I've done is I've hooked that up to my accounting system. I use Xero and I generate an invoice, and I could fully automate that, but I'm just double checking the first few sales. And so I'm creating that as a draft invoice. So the customer gets enrolled in the courses, and then I just come in and approve the invoice, and off the invoice goes to the customer. So you can see in my accounting system, here's a test draft invoice. So it's coming in telling me which course they bought, which plan they've enrolled in. It's got the prices. If it's an Australian business, it'll add on GST, which is our sales tax here in Australia. This is a US one, so it's GST free, so there's no GST on it. And just for my purpose, it lets me know what that is in Australian dollars, and it will generate an invoice. And I have a Wise bank account. I've got Wise bank accounts in the US and Australia and various other currencies. So the customer, when they receive that invoice, can choose to pay by bank transfer from their US bank account into my US bank account, or my pound sterling account their pound sterling account into mine. So it makes it nice and easy for finance folks to pay my invoices.
That's brilliant. So, and then you approve that email in there. So at the moment you've got it in draft, but you are thinking once you've checked it all, tested, you're then going to implement that. So it's an automatic way of working.
No, I have to take a bit of a leap of faith here that the customer who has signed up people online are going to pay their invoice in a reasonably quick period. You can see here my issue date is the same as the due date. So basically I'm saying, hey, you've signed up, pay the money, please. This is not you don't have 30 days to pay. This is going to pay me today. So I'm trusting my buyer to pay that invoice in a timely fashion. And, worst comes to worst, I could pause the enrollment or suspend the student's access to the course while we were sorting that out. But I've never had a problem collecting money. I'm really lucky. I know most of the Microsoft customers and partners that might want to sign up for my course, and generally don't have an issue. But if that was something of a concern for you, you might want to consider that, collect payment first before you release the enrollments.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's quite an important aspect of it. Depending on your client base, of course. If you've got trustworthy people and those sort of things, then you know that it's all going to be paid. But there's always going to be a situation. It might not even be on purpose, but it might be just the card doesn't work or something like that, or they forget, and then a little chase.
So that customer who signed up over 40 students, their first invoice took about 6 weeks to pay. And I was getting pretty nervous. They'd signed up 5, maybe 10 people, and no sign of payment. I'm like knocking on the door, sending them an invoice and sending them a reminder. And it was just oversight. The guy had gone off on holiday, thought he'd sent it to the accounts team, and it fell in between the cracks. But we got paid eventually and had many more sales since then.
Good.
And then the last step I thought I'd show you is I've got 2 Zaps supporting this in Zapier. So if I'm sure a lot of Zenler course creators are familiar with Zapier. So I've got a bunch of different Zaps in my business, a whole bunch use Zenler automations. I've got 2 supporting this. So I put them in a folder called Humanitics. I've got one creating an invoice in Xero. So I'll show you this one really quickly. This took me quite a long time to figure out how to do this, but I'm using a Humanitics trigger called creating a new contact, which is really just a new order with the buyer information, all the sales information about the tickets and what plan they are, what price they are, whether there's tax and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I filter based on which course it was, and then 3 different paths depending on which currency the order was created in, because I want to specify in Xero which currency to use and which template to use for my invoices, because the template's got the different banking details on it. So that's my first Zap. And then the second one.
So if you added a different currency rate in there, you'd add a 4th one in there, would you?
Yes. One of the limitations of Zapier is that you can only, I think initially it was only supported 2 paths. I think now they can support 5.
Yeah.
So there are going to be some limitations. there are ways around that. I've sometimes what I've done is add in an extra filter and say if the filter is, let's say, pound sterling or euro, stop, and I would have a different zap for pound sterling and euro, and that zap would say if it's Aussie dollar, US dollar, stop.
Yeah, so it goes off in a different, yeah, and then you'd have
That's
to
right.
reverse it on the new one, wouldn't you? To
Yeah,
yeah, to get it
yeah.
to go through. Yeah, that's another thing, Neil. So I love you love Zapier, don't you? You use it for loads and loads of different things. I see all these things the way you're using Zapier in there. And it's like it's
Yeah.
really quite interesting.
Yeah, so I use Pably Connect as well. So Pably Connect is much cheaper than Zapier. What I was doing was every time somebody completed a lesson, that was triggering a Zapier. And if it was the last lesson in a section, then I was tagging that person in my email system saying, no, they've completed section one. And that would send them an email saying, well done, you've completed section one. Here's the next lesson. It starts to section two and so on. So there's a lot of automations firing. And it was getting really quite expensive to do that with Zapier with the number of courses and free courses and the number of students ramped up pretty quickly. Pably Connect, a much more cost-effective way to handle those particular automations. So a webhook fires in a new Zenler every time somebody completes a lesson. Pably Connect catches those and then updates my email marketing system if it's the last lesson in a section. And the other Humanitics Zap I've got here is when there's a new attendee. So you saw that feature earlier. Here we go. So this is a, oops, I have to restart. But like every ticketing system, you can only hold a ticket for so long before you have to make a decision. So these are the two attendees. So this Zapier would fire twice because there's two attendees. If they ordered 10 tickets, then it would fire 10 times, and each attendee would get enrolled in my course. And then I just do things like I tag them, I send them a welcome video, I tag which plan they're on, do all that kind of stuff, and I enroll them in the appropriate pricing tier in my new Zenler course. So far, so good. It's early days. We've had a couple of sales coming in, but yeah, really looking forward to lots more. 80% of my sales by value are business-to-business sales. So I really wanted to find a way of automating that, and hopefully this does the trick and inspires a few other Zenler creators to go and do something similar.
Yeah, no, I think it's brilliant looking at this. I mean, I can imagine that. Okay, guys, so like there might be lots of like people that are new to course creation and want to do this stuff. So there is a little bit of learning if you're going to learn how to use Zapier, but you can mess around with it like a free course and try it out, try all these things out before you get into it as deep as Neil goes into it with the way paths are working. But actually, and I'm sure you agree with this, Neil, if you start to look at Zapier, it's quite logical. It's telling you with all the actions and the triggers, it really tells you what to do. You just have to look at it and say, right, okay, well, that's going to take it there. That's going to take it there. And you can always test the app. I think that's one thing like testing. We say testing in Zenler, but you need to test your Zaplinks work as well. Or even if
Yep.
you're using Pably, you need to test each of those stages. And you see, like Neil's quite experienced in these things, but he's still in the invoice system. He's approving it because he just wants to make sure everything's working as he expects, rather than just hit the, automation and then just leave it. You're not going to risk that, are you? Are you, Neil?
No, my accountant would be pretty upset. They don't like to see too many void invoices. So what I did, you can see here, this is a dummy invoice. I will have to do whatever it is. There's a button somewhere to not approve it, and that just deletes the invoice. I started out in Xero. Xero gives you what's called a demo company. So that's a completely separate fictitious business, and that's where I started doing my testing and development when I was building that Zapier. And I'd set up a couple of currencies in there and tested it all out there before setting it all up again and reconnecting Zapier to my live accounting company, which is called Customary. So yeah, absolutely. And I've actually, got my credit card out, created a 99% discount coupon, and paid a little bit of money, paid the Humanitics booking fee, because I want to test it with real money. I see some Zenler creators like, oh, I've tested everything. Oh, but I haven't bought my own course yet. Like, well, yeah, you need to go and buy your own
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Go right through, see the money land in PayPal, see the money land in Stripe, or in my case in Humanitics, and check out what the buyer's experience is like from one end right to the other.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right. And that's why I say, like, you need to, we show you how to test without paying for your thing, or you could put 100% coupon or those sort of things. But really, when you're before you launch, you need to go through that whole process. You need to buy it, and it's not hard because you buy it, you can refund yourself it back anyway.
Yeah.
So you won't get those fees. You just go into Stripe or PayPal or whatever system, and it normally refunds you the whole bit. And so you can, and even if you do pay a small fee, it's worth it just for that peace of mind that you know that it's worked all the way through. So it's really nice also, Neil, that you've echoed that, because it's like the number one thing. How many times we get
Well,
help?
I saw somebody today. It's like, well, oh, this is my scenario. What will happen? Well, what happens when you test it? Uh, it's the number one way to find out what happens is to test it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
test it right the way through the line. So on the plus note, there's been a lot of talk about B2B sales, and I know that the Zenler development team are looking at trying to make that easier in the system to do. So by
great.
looking
I
at
would
the
love all of my time to have been wasted here.
no,
If you're about to tell me it's all standard
well,
functionality
no,
next month.
look at it this way, Neil. Your time's not been wasted because we're looking at what you're doing. And we're saying, right, okay, well, that system works. How can we get that into the system so it's easier to work? Where if we have someone's example of what they're doing, we can see exactly all the steps that they need, like you just explained. So it makes it really easy. It's why we always send to people, if you've got a problem with your site, then must send a Loom video because we can see it then. Because
Yeah.
it's very hard to sometimes get that problem to happen on our system, if at all. So by seeing someone's example of what they want and what they're doing now, it means that the team can look at this and go, well, this is how it's working. How can we streamline this to get it straight in the system? What do we not need from there? What do we need? I mean, one thing you can see there is that multi-currency thing of getting it into the system,
Yeah, it's a bit
and
of a fudge for me. Yeah, that's right.
and also tying in automations with it as well that could work with it as well. And that batch, and I love the way that you could just go in there as a B2B, put the buyer and then select the amount of people and just put their name and emails in there.
Yeah.
I really like that. That's really good. And yeah, choosing the amount of seats as well, to
Uh,
fill in those
so
details.
David, I have I've been with Zenler for 3 or 4 years. My previous platform doesn't support B2B, and I evaluated all the leading online course platforms that play in our space, and none of them support it well at all. There are a couple, if you're willing to spend a couple of $1,000s a month in the kind of corporate learning management space. Most of those don't have any online cart because they assume you're selling offline, or you're training internal teams, in a big corporation. So there's a real opportunity here, I think, for New Zenler to. I know that you've got a real strong position as the live online course platform with a great Zoom integration, but I think you could steal a huge amount of business from other course platforms with stronger B2B features. The one thing I haven't figured out how to build, and I don't know how to get there on my own, is when a business customer says, how are my team doing? Can you send me a progress report for my team? And that's pretty challenging because the way I've done it in the past with coupons is somebody can sign up with a personal email address, even though they were given a coupon by their boss, and they may not use a corporate email address. Trying to filter and find the people who've enrolled with that coupon code and gather up the progress reports, that bit is still tricky, but I'm sure you're working on it.
Yeah, I think it's I think there's a way maybe that if bulk ones are sent out, maybe there's a code that people use that would then tag them as they were part of that group, or something like that, or even a link that's dedicated to that particular cohort. Funny you should say it. I know because there's a lot of questions around reports and things. We got reports in there, but that is something else as well that I know Zenler are looking at, more detailed reports, being able to sort things easier and be able to basically select students and look at how they're doing against each other. That is another big
Right.
point as well. But I think the B2B thing is something, it's come up so many times, you know, so it was really nice when you put that graphic on there, because I thought, well, this is great. This is really highlighting and it's showing exactly what an instructor has done here to achieve what they need to do, and not be able to do it in the platform, which kind of, you know, annoys us at Zenler. We want everyone to be able to do it in the platform, but it's simply not possible sometimes because you've had to go around this route to get there. I know you do the same thing with Zap links as well. You're like, oh, I need to tie into that, and I'm going to send that back there. And we
Yeah.
really don't want that. We almost want to replace everything. So it's been really good. And I hope you guys watching this have appreciate Neil's time in showing you actually how it was all done. And yeah, it's fantastic. It's been a great one. Thank you so much, Neil.
Yeah, my pleasure, David. If anybody wants any questions answered, I'm always there in the Facebook group. I'll do what I can to help you out.
Fabulous. All right, so that's another Zen pop-up. Hope you like that one. Neil, tag Neil in if you want him to. He's a very busy man, so he might not be able to answer you straight away, but he is on the boards a lot, helping a lot of people out. So yeah, just tag Neil in there, and I'm sure he'll reply to you. Brilliant. So see you soon. See you soon, guys.